We are going to study about the marine landforms. So let's start. So marine landforms are the landforms which are made on the coastlines. Okay, so mostly you will find these marine landforms on the coastlines. So the coastal landforms are formed by the constant action of the waves, tides and currents. So these are the agents which are working for the formation of the marine landforms. Which are this? The waves, the tides and the currents. So the coastline, under the influence of these denudation agents, changes the coastal landforms and gives shape to various types of marine landforms. Okay, so the constant action which is done by the waves, the tides and the currents, they actually act on the coastline, and after a certain period of time they change the structure of the coastline, and in this way it gives rise to different types of marine landforms. So first let's study about the agents of the erosion. Okay, the waves, now we have studied the waves, the currents and the tides. So first we will start with the waves. What are the waves? So waves accomplish most of the changes along the coast. They are mainly responsible for the formation or for the degradation of the landforms, that is the coastal landforms. So constant impact of breaking waves drastically affects the coasts. Okay, so this wave, what they will do, they'll hit the coastline. Okay, the coastline which is mainly made up of rocks, they will hit the coastline and they will continuously degrade it, continuously erode it, and then they will change the structure of the coastline. So when waves break, the water is thrown with great force onto the shore, and simultaneously there is a great churning of sediments on the sea bottom. So these waves, when this break, they will hit the coastline. At that time, either it will degrade the coastline or it will form a new type of new form of structure by deposition of the sediments. Either it will degrade the coastline or it will deposit the sediments and form a different type of structure on the coastline. Okay, like maybe it may be like beaches or sand, the dunes which are there on the coastline. Okay, so this type of structures may be formed due to the deposition of the waves. So storm waves and tsunami waves can cause far-reaching changes in short period of time than normal breaking waves. Okay, tsunami waves, we know that they are very destructive, and what changes they can do, we have seen that when India faced the tsunami, and then mainly in Japan, Japan also faces a tsunami. So we know that tsunami waves are very high and they are huge, and they can change and alter the shape and size of the coastline also. See, on calm days when winds are slight, waves do little damage to the shoreline and maybe instead help to build up beaches and other depositional features. So when waves are high, that time they may act as the agent of erosion, and when they are low, they may act as an agent of deposition. Then the next is tides and currents. Now tides and currents are also an agent of erosion. So tides and current on contact with the shores make very little direct attack on the coastline. So tides affect marine erosion mainly by extending a line of erosion into a zone of erosion. This zone corresponds to the area between the low water level and the high water level. And currents help to move eroded debris and deposit it as silt, sand and gravel along the coasts. Okay, so tides also help in the erosion, and currents, they help in the transportation of the sediments which are eroded by the waves and the tides. Okay, so currents are the agents of transportation, you can say that. Now we look into the mechanism of the marine erosion. How is this marine erosion actually happening? So the rate of marine erosion depends on the nature of rocks. What type of rocks are there on the coastline? Okay, it totally depends on the nature of rock. What are the rocks made of? It will totally depend upon the composition of the rocks. Okay, so the amount of rock exposed exposed to the sea. This will also be an important factor. Okay, so firstly, it will be the nature of rock. Secondly, the how much rock is exposed. Waves armed with rock debris break in cliff. Okay, the waves armed with rock debris break on cliff faces and slowly erode it. Okay, the cliff faces which are there, for example, here this is the cliff, the rock cliff, and here the waves are coming, and when the waves are coming, the sea waves, they are coming, and that time they may have rock debris also with them. Okay, and the water along with this rock debris will hit the cliff, and when this will hit the cliff, that time it will erode the cliff. Okay, the rock and the water both combine together, that will erode the cliff, and slowly steadily over a period of time it will change the structure of that cliff. Okay, so in this way corrosion will happen. Oncoming currents and tides complete the work by sweeping the eroded material into the sea. Now, whatever the material which is eroded by the tides, it will get transported through the currents. Okay. Second is attrition. So the attrition occurs when waves cause loose pieces of rock debris such as boulders, pebbles, shingle, and fine sand to collide with each other. Okay, when whatever the material it has eroded, they collide with each other, and under attrition, these materials are broken down into finer, smaller, and rounder particles, which are largely responsible for the fine sand that forms the beach. Now, whatever material is eroded from the cliff, now we have seen the corrosion was happening, the waves were hitting the cliff along with the rock debris which was brought by the waves, that was hitting the cliff, and it was eroding the cliff, the rock cliff. Okay, this was a rock cliff, and it was eroding the cliff, and lot of material, the boulders, the pebbles, the shingle, okay, and the fine sand, it was created from this the cliff. Okay, and when this was eroded, at that time it was also having a friction among themselves. Okay, so this is called as the attrition. That means the friction of the materials among themselves only, and they again, they again, under this attrition, they break down under finer, smaller, and rounder particles. Okay, and finally this smaller, rounder, and finer particles, these are deposited on the coastline as the beaches. Okay, now next is the hydraulic action. What is this hydraulic action? So in their forward surge, waves splashing against the coast may enter joints and crevices in the rocks. The air trapped inside is immediately compressed. Now we know that air is there in the cracks and the joints, and now when the air is hit by the water, at that time the air will get compressed. Okay, so when the waves retreat, the compressed air expands with explosive violence. Such repeated action causes enlargement of the rocks, and rock fragments are cracked apart. Now for example, we will see that this is a cliff which is along the coastline. This is some rock structure along the coastline. This is the cliff, and here you can see this is the sea. Okay, here is the cliff, and here is the sea, the waves. Okay, this is the sea. Now when the waves are hitting, they will hit the cliff, and when they will hit the cliff, that time there will be some cracks or fractures in this cliff here, and in these cracks there will be air which is trapped, and when the water will hit these cracks, that time the air will get compressed. Okay, and when the water is retreated, when the waves go back, at that time again the air will be expanded. First it is compressed. Why? Because the water has hit the fracture, so the air got compressed. Now the water has retreated, and the air again will expand, and due to this expansion and contraction it will get broken into fragments. Okay, and this will result into the fragments of the rocks. Okay, cracking of the rocks and the fragments of the rocks. So this is called as hydraulic action, remember this, where air is getting compressed in the fractures, in the cracks, and again it is expanding. Then what is solvent action? So this refers to chemical erosion of rocks. So this process is limited to limestone coasts. On limestone coasts, the solvent action of seawater on calcium carbonate sets up chemical changes in the rocks and disintegration takes place. Okay, so in the solvent action, here mainly the role is played on the calcium, the rocks which are made up of calcium carbonate. Okay, that is the limestone rocks, and when the rocks, this type of rocks, they will be made up of limestones. At that time the seawater will act on this limestone rocks, and the calcium carbonate, okay, the chemical change will take place, and that will get dissolved into water, and due to this chemical change the disintegration will happen. So this is called a solvent action on the coast. So now we have seen four types. One is the corrosion, where the waves were hitting the rock, where the waves were hitting the cliff and eroding it, so that is called as corrosion. Then attrition, so this is the corrosion. Here second we saw the attrition, where the eroded particle were actually crashing with each other, and they were again getting finer and filtered and getting smoother. Okay, so this was among the eroded particles themselves only. Okay, so first we saw corrosion, second we saw attrition, third we saw hydraulic action, in which the air was getting compressed and again it was expanding, and fourth we saw the solvent action, in which the seawater was acting on the limestone rocks which are made up of calcium carbonate. Okay, now if we see the types of marine landforms, we will get to know that there are two types of marine landforms. Firstly, there are erosional landforms, which are created due to the erosion, and secondly we will find that there are other type of landforms which are called as depositional landforms, which are created due to the deposition of the silt. Whatever material was eroded from the erosional landforms, it is actually deposited to create the depositional landforms. Here the material is eroded, that is weared away, and here it is deposited. Okay, as simple as that. Now let's see the erosional landforms. What are the erosional landforms? So here you will find the sea cliffs are also erosional landforms. Then wave cut platforms, they are also a erosional landform. Then sea caves, it is also erosional landform. Then sea arches, it is also erosional landform. Then sea stack, what is sea stack? We are going to see about that. So this is also erosional landform. And then blowholes, these are also erosional landforms. So we are going to study about that in detail. So first let's start with the sea cliffs. Okay, so this is sea cliffs. So here I was talking about a cliff. So this is a cliff, if you see. Okay, it is a cliff along the coastline, and the waves are continuously hitting it. The waves are coming and it will continuously hit this cliff, and it will change the structure of the cliff. Okay, and various types of marine landforms will be formed from this sea cliff only. Okay, so it is a base material or parent material. for the formation of marine landforms. Sea cliffs are the base material or parent material for the formation of various types of marine landforms. Okay, so remember that. Now, what is wave cut platforms? So if you can see here, this structure, the rocky structure, you can see this is called as wave cut platforms. Earlier the coast was still here, but due to the action of the waves, the water came till here and then eroded this part, then again eroded this part. So it kept on moving inside, and the erosion was going on, continuously erosion. Continuous erosion was going on, and due to this continuous erosion, the coastline is receded, and we find that these wave cut platforms are formed. So you will find these wave cut platforms on the coastlines, and mainly they are made up of rocks. Okay, they are hard rocks, the platforms are hard rocks, and they are formed due to the action of the waves on the coastline. Okay, so these are the wave cut platforms. Next we will find the sea caves. Okay, so here you can see this is the cliff, and the cliff, when the waves started to hit this cliff, when the waves were hitting the cliff, okay, and due to the action of the waves, the water was hitting the cliff, and due to the hydraulic action, plus solution plus corrosion. So due to all of these three action, we know that in the hydraulic action the air is compressed, and again when the wave retreats, the air is expanded. Here you can see the chemical structure of the rocks changes, and it gets dissolved into the seawater, and the fragments are broken into pieces. And then in the corrosion, you see the wave is bringing the coarser material along with it, and it is hitting the cliff, and it is wearing away. So due to these three actions, the sea caves are formed by the action of the waves. Waves will hit this coast, hit this structure, and these waves will wear away, and slowly and steadily it will go inside, and these sea caves are formed. So sea caves are formed due to the action of the waves, remember. Okay, action of waves. Now we will see what is sea arches. Okay, now sometimes the sea caves which were formed, they may be on the outer side of the cliff. Okay, so this was a cliff. Earlier this was a wholly covered cliff, and first this was a cave. This part was a cave, and slowly and steadily the work of waves kept on going. The waves were hitting, and the waves were hitting the cave. Continuous erosion and continuous hydraulic action, continuous corrosion was going off of the cave, and the backside of the cave that fall down, and the sea arches were formed. Okay, so earlier this was a cave, but due to the action of the waves from both sides, from this side as well as from this side, so here you can see this was a cliff, whole cliff, and a cave was formed due to the action. Okay, a cave was formed due to the action, and it kept on receding. This cave kept on receding because the water was coming inside and it was hitting. Water was coming inside and it was hitting due to the waves were hitting. Okay, the waves were continuously hitting, and the cave kept on receding, and from the backside also the waves were hitting. Okay, and from this side also it started to recede. And this type of, it fell down, the middle portion, it fell down, and it created this type of sea arches. So due to the hydraulic action, the corrosion, as well as hydraulic action as well as corrosion as well as a solution, three started to work, and the sea arches were formed. So the sea arches are formed mainly from the sea caves. First they are sea caves. In the sea stack is also a part of the sea cave, sea arches. Okay, the series is going on. First the sea cave was formed, later on the sea cave got converted into a sea arch, and again after a period of time the sea arch will get converted into a sea stack. Now let me tell you, when this structure will fall, okay, when this structure will form, this structure will fall down, okay, if this structure is very weak and it falls down, and when this will fall down, it will give rise to the C stack. Only this type of structure will remain, and this is called as C stack. Remember this. Okay, C stack is a structure, the single wall like structure which is independently standing in the sea water is called as C stack. Okay, only this structure will remain. This will fall down, this will fall down, and only this structure will remain, and this is called as C stack. Remember. Now next is the blue blowholes. Now blowholes are very important, and it is if you have visited some coastlines, you may find this kind of blowholes. So blowholes are the underwater work, the underground work of the water. Okay, so here you may find the waves, they have created a cave below this. Okay, so the waves have created a cave below this, and the work is going on continuously. Here also you can see a cave was created. Actually this is not floating on the water. Okay, so it is joint, it is just for the representation how the water is working, the image I have used, but it is, you may think that this rock is floating on the water. Okay, it is not possible, rock cannot float on the water. So here you will find the caves are made by the waves, and when the waves they start to work upside of the caves, for example this cave is formed and the waves are coming and they are working, and sometimes the wave will work upside of the cave also, on the roof of the cave, and that time they will create a depression, and slowly steadily there will be a hole, roof of the cave, and this hole is called as blowholes. So whenever the wave will hit the cave, that time the water will come upside and through the blowholes. So this type of structure you will find. Why? Because beneath the cave the roof will have a hole and the water will come outside. Okay, so these are the blowholes. Now next let's see what are the depositional landforms. So beaches are also a depositional landforms, then dunes, then bars, then barriers, then spits. Okay, so beaches, dunes, bars, barriers, and spits. So these are the depositional features of the marine landforms. Okay, so first let's start with the beaches, which are very famous, a famous tourist destination spot for the people, for the tourists. Okay, so here are the beaches. So beaches are nothing but the depositional features of the waves. Okay, so waves, whatever material they have eroded from the earlier part, we have seen the sea cliffs, we have seen the sea caves, we have seen the sea arches, and we have seen the stacks. So whatever material they have eroded from the erosional landforms, they will bring here and they will deposit on some land, sea coast. Okay, where the waves are slow and where they don't have anything for erosion. Okay, and their speed is also slow, and there they will keep on depositing the coarser material or the debris which they have brought with themselves. Okay, and here you will find whatever the finer material, not coarser, the finer material which they have brought with them, they will deposit here, and this will result into the formation of a beach. Okay, so in this way beach is a depositional landform. Remember this, the material here you can find this fine silt which the waves had brought along with themselves from the erosional landforms, they will deposit here on the coastline. Next you will find dunes. Now dunes, you may say that dunes are present in the deserts only. No, they are present on the coastlines also. Sometimes the dunes you will find behind the coastline. Okay, the whatever the silt they have brought, it will get deposited behind the coastline, behind the beaches. Okay, especially behind the beaches. Remember this. So the dunes you will find behind the beach, and whatever the silt they have, whatever the silt the waves have brought, first they will get deposited on the beach, and later on this will keep on moving backward, and a dune will be created, and this type of dunes you will find on some of the coastlines. It is not present everywhere. In some of the coastline you will find it. The next is bars. So bars, this is also a depositional feature. The waves have brought all the finer material, and it is deposited on certain place where they find some obstruction. They find some obstruction, and this material gets deposited. So usually bars will be underwater. It will not be visible, like it will not, ये पानी से ऊपर नहीं होगा, waves मतलब water level के ऊपर नहीं होगा. Okay, it will be just below the water, but it will be little visible, but not that much visible. Okay, visibility will be very low, and this type of structure is called as bars, where it is partially below the water and partially above the water. Okay, so this type of structures, small structures, are called as bars. And when this bar is in when this bar will have a height, that will be called as barrier bar. Okay, when it comes outside of the water, okay, when it crosses the water level and when it rises above the water, okay, when it is visible, clearly visible, that time we will call it as the barrier bar. First it was a small bar which was below the water level. Later on, when it came outside above the water level, that time we will call it as the barrier bars. Okay, now the third one is spit. Now when these bars are connected with each other, they will form this type of structure. Okay, here you can find this type of structures will be created. This is called when the bars are interconnected with each other from the coastline. They are connected to the coastline. So this is called as spit. And when it is totally connected, it will close this water area, enclosed. Okay, when the spit, it extends and again it joins the other side of the coast, this will create a new lake, and this type of lakes are called as lagoons. Okay, so this type of lakes are called as lagoons when the spit is extending. When the bars are interconnected and they keep on extending, it will be called as spits. And when the spit is extending again and when it is joining the next side of the coastline and it is taking a round shape and enclosing this water body, so it will create a new water body, and that will be called as a lake, which is called as lagoon lake. Okay, so these are the marine landforms, the important marine landforms which you should remember. So that's all about the marine landforms. In our next lesson, we are going to study about the arid landforms, the landforms which are made in the dry area, in the desert regions, or the areas where the precipitation is very low and the evaporation is very high. Okay, so we are going to study about that in detail in this lesson. So